And finally, as I said, welcome to our final session and to Emma Young from the BBC, an R&D specialist and also the chair of the Women in STEM group for the BBC, a fabulous speaker. I've seen her speak to a group of young people before and I was wowed by what she gets up to. So I am really looking forward to hearing you this afternoon.
No
All right,
pressure,
big round of applause
then.
to start her off.
You've kind of bigged me up, so I'm going to have to deliver now. And it's right at the end of the day as well. So yes, I'm Dr. Emma Young. I work at the BBC. So I've got 2 roles at the moment. One voluntary role as chair of BBC Women in STEM Network. And also I'm an R&D engineer. I'm currently working between the audio team and the editorial and development producer team in R&D. And it's a fantastic place to work. I'll tell you a little bit about BBC Research and Development. So our R&D department, basically it's all about the BBC's commitment to innovate, to inform, educate and entertain audiences. So we work across every aspect of the broadcast chain, from production and distribution, and even investigating new programme formats. So it's a really creative role. We are prototyping, testing new ideas with audiences, and then trying to persuade the wider BBC to take up our ideas, which can be a bit challenging at times. But it's a really fun job, and I absolutely love the department. So WiSTEM, the BBC Women in STEM Network, I started volunteering with WiSTEM about 18 months ago and moved into the chair role about a year ago. So we have members working in areas all across the BBC from a broad range of specialisms and also at different career stages. So we're supporting junior staff when they come in right through to our senior leaders. It's a really thriving, supportive network and it's great to be a part of it. We run a number of initiatives designed to connect, empower and inspire. That's our kind of mission. Connect, empower and inspire our members to learn, develop and succeed in their careers in the BBC and beyond. Some of the initiatives we run, we do monthly events. So we do 2 events per month where we get inspiring internal women or external women to come and talk to our members. We record these so they can catch up on demand as well. We run a really successful mentoring scheme where we match more experienced members of staff with more junior members of staff, just to share some insights about the organisation, because it really is such a large and vibrant and really diverse organisation. What else do? We run sessions aimed at equipping our staff, our female staff in particular, at understanding new business processes. So for example, we recently they rolled out a new PDR process. So, you know, in order to get women kind of skilled up and getting the best out of that process, we had our HR director partner come and talk to us and just coach the women on how to get the best out of that conversation with their line managers. So things like that. I'm getting a little pop-up. How can I just...
See if we can snooze that.
Yeah, shall we?
Not this one. Actually, let me do it on that screen, yes.
Yeah, that little bit on the side is not working. Right, there we go. And we also run a monthly newsletter. So it's great. So, you know, staff from all over the BBC, if they want to recruit more women or just want to recruit anyone, they'll drop us an email in our WiSTEM inbox and say, please, can you help promote this opportunity? So lots of stuff goes into our newsletter. We've got a lead that works on gathering all the content for that. We have an executive sponsor who is fantastic and very, very supportive. That's the Chief Product Officer. Her name's Storm Fagan. And she works with us to continuously improve the employee experience and build even more inclusive culture for BBC women in STEM. So why is diversity, equity and inclusion important? So you've heard a lot in the last panel about it, so I'm just going to talk a little bit more. So I do hope you're interested in DEI. The fact is, teams are really strengthened by a variety of backgrounds, perspectives and opinions in the room. The most successful teams foster inclusive working environments where individuals feel really empowered to come forward with their ideas, to voice their concerns, to play an active role in their teams and to do their best work. No one should feel that they're talked over in meetings. No one should feel, I've got a good idea, but I'll just hold back. And then someone else, comes in with their idea, then it wasn't as good. Everyone should feel that they can speak up and feel valued and feel like their voice is valued. So who is responsible for creating an inclusive culture for women in any organisation? Well, that's everyone. We all are. So what are the main challenges that women in tech face? Well, women in tech are more likely to work in male-dominated teams. We know this. It's a widely known fact. They're more likely to work part-time because of, various commitments at home. They may have increased care burdens. So that includes elderly parents, looking after elderly parents, picking up shopping, for example, children. And for mothers, they may be having to compensate for long periods of their career being on hold. So they're out of the workplace for, a long period of time where things move on, and then you start to doubt your skills, and you think, oh, well, I've been away too long now. Who's going to employ me now? It's really, really tough. And I think being mindful of these sorts of issues is incredibly important. And this is a big one. Women in tech are more likely to take on glue work. So if you're not familiar with the concept of glue work, this is the kind of work that's needed in a team or across a project in order to move things forward, but it's invisible work. And women, in particular, volunteer to do the work. They might not even, voice, hey, I'm going to do this thing. They might just actually go away and do it because they see something needs done. And men are more, very less likely to step up and just take care and keep things ticking over. But the problem with glue work, even though, it's a really fantastic skill to have oversight of a project and think, oh, there's been a breakdown in communication between those stakeholders. I'm going to set up, a session and I'll mediate and get things back on track. Or, for example, things just aren't kind of getting done on time. So I'm going to just send an email and chase that up. We've got to schedule a meeting. I'll send the invite out. It's always women that are taking on that kind of hidden but really important work. And really, the success of projects rely on a hell of a lot of glue work, but the fact is it's non-promotable. So while a woman in tech, part of the team, is dealing with all these little things that move the project along and ensure project success, the men on the team are, they're focusing on building their skills and actually, maybe building a product, for example. And when the time comes to put yourself forward for promotion, then it's, well, what have you been doing all that time, actually? Because the glue work you've been doing, I don't recognise it. It's not part of the kind of job description for the next rung up the ladder. It's not captured in there at all. But the fact is, women who, put themselves forward for this glue work, keep things taken over, can have that oversight of a whole project and see what really needs to be done to ensure success. They make fantastic leaders. And we're just not, building evidence of these types of skills. So really good to kind of capture. And what you can do really in your organizations, if you see a woman is always doing the glue work, put a stop to it. Well, say, well, hey, Dan, why don't you send that email? You've got a bit of time because Kerry needs to go on with her coding. She's got to finish this thing. So make sure it's distributed more evenly. And if you have to intervene, you should. And women in tech, sadly, are more likely to experience microaggressions in the workplace. So, these vary, and it's little things that, that can pick away at you over time. So it might be a comment someone makes. I'll give you an example of one. I was going to a big technology show, and an older male colleague of mine, I'm not saying it's during this job, but an older male colleague of mine gave me some really valuable advice, or so he thought. He told me that I best not dress like I was going for a night out, or I wouldn't be taken seriously at this big technology show. So I was like, well, firstly, I don't dress like I'm going on a night out at work. And secondly, why should how I dress, alter someone's perception of my talents, my skills, and my experience? So I didn't really like that comment, but, these things, they build up over time and they can really cause you to question whether you belong in a field or a job. So hybrid working. We've heard of some of the challenges, but hybrid working actually brings some of its own challenges for women in tech. So there was some research carried out that showed the burden of housekeeping, childcare and caring for elderly parents are more likely to fall on women. So we talked about glue work in the workplace. Well, women do a hell of a lot of glue work at home as well. For example, I can't remember the last time my husband went out and thought about buying a birthday gift for the kids' party at the weekend. It's unseen, the invisible things that just kind of needs to happen to keep your life ticking over. And now that organisations are adopting more longer-term models of hybrid and remote working, this is fantastic for flexibility. And I certainly myself, I'm working from home most of the time because it allows me to pick my daughter up from school, for example, to do some of that glue work in between meetings or my lunch break, which I just couldn't do in the office. But this flexibility may then exacerbate existing gender inequalities and biases. Because women have all that, extra burdens, they're more likely to work from home. Well, more men go into the office. And what's the problem with that? Men being more visible at work causes a phenomenon, the mere exposure effect. So that's this affinity that we feel with people that we're more familiar with. So it results in managers unconsciously favouring employees they see more often in person, who then perhaps benefit from better career progression and access to opportunities. Hybrid working women are particularly vulnerable to missed opportunities, from being overlooked for promotions to even suffering disengagement from colleagues. So I'll give you another example of this. Funnily enough, it was the same colleague. It's another microaggression, same colleague. So we're working, our desks were next to each other, and I was working compressed hours. So I was working 4 longer days, sometimes 4 kind of longer days, and then a half day. And when I kind of gathered up my things and went to leave, this colleague said, "Oh, leaving so soon?" Knowing fine well, actually, that when he was going home every night, I was staying in the office and making up my hours. And in fact, the kind of person I am, I do more than the hours that I'm paid for. So that really, it felt like a bit of a, why are you saying that loudly so everyone turns around and looks? So yes, disengagement from colleagues. This came up before, it's been said a couple of times today, and I've only been here for half the day. You can't be what you cannot see. So this is where role models are incredibly important. So why do we have male-dominated teams? Because we need more women in these roles. For many girls and women, the lack of women in STEM fields means it's hard to envision themselves in those fields at all. So, that's schoolgirls. I couldn't possibly work in tech. I couldn't possibly be a programmer because I don't really see much of that. And, media has a big part to play. You may have heard of the Scully effect, for example. So this is X-Files in the early 90s, if any of you are also as old as me and watched it a lot. But the main character, played by Gillian Anderson, she showed, these young girls and young women that, you can be an attractive, strong, successful, clever woman. You could actually essentially have it all. And a lot of young girls aspire to be like Gillian Anderson, or her character at least, in the X-Files. And the Scully effect, actually, it was something that was discussed at kind of Comic-Con festivals. Actually, an institute did some research on it, and they found that women in the early 90s who watched or religiously tuned into the X-Files were 50% more likely to end up in a STEM field because they could see female representation on screen. So it's really, really important. So what about for those who then enter STEM fields? So we encourage children at school age to choose STEM subjects, go on to university, and enter an industry that is related. The fact that there's a lack of women in leadership means it's then hard for those women to envision themselves as future leaders. So we need more role models for young girls and women, and also for the women in our organisations. So how can you attract and retain female talent? Well, I've got a few ideas. Some are really obvious, but really just need to be said, really. And some are more subtle. You should definitely offer some high visibility work to, if you've got an amazing woman on your team doing tech-related stuff, offer high visibility work, because she might often be doing that glue work, and then that high visibility work goes to a male colleague, and then he gets all the recognition. And also make sure that you celebrate success. So if a woman or any member of staff does a great job, you should shout about it. Share on the communication channels you use at work. So-and-so did a great job in this. Look what they're doing, fantastic. Definitely offer praise, and publicly as well. Female leaders, we just talked about. Your organisation needs female leaders. If you've got an executive committee and it's all male, all white middle-aged males, you've got a problem there. You need more women in. You need more diversity in all aspects. But firstly, focus on gender diversity, I would say, right at the top. And then those women who's going to enter your organisation can see it, so they'll think, I can be it. Also, you need to ensure that your line managers are invested in the career development of their direct reports. There's nothing worse than having a line manager that doesn't really care about where you end up, that's not asking you, well, what are your goals, for the next 12 months? Where do you want to be? Where do you see yourself in 3 years' time? Having those really valuable conversations, it can really, it can lift your day, weeks, months as you work towards that. And it's having, the right line managers. And, some people shouldn't be people managers. So if you're identifying that, someone's not getting the right support, it's time to be asking some questions. And then monitor the progression of your women. If women are entering your business and, you've got pretty good representation at the bottom end, what's it look like after 12 months, 2 years? Are those women still sitting in the same jobs, or have they moved on? Are they, getting pay rises? And are these happening at the same rate as their male counterparts and colleagues? And also identify biases. There's a lot of unconscious biases that we all have. I have unconscious biases as well, and I have to, slap myself when I realise that it's just happened. Like, I can't believe I fell into the trap. I thought I was so much better than that. But the truth is, we all have unconscious biases. But it's really important just to be aware of them. Then you can check yourself, you can check your language, you can make sure that your unconscious bias doesn't affect a colleague and make them not feel included. And you also need to address male-dominated teams. So it's not just getting women in as leaders. There shouldn't be any male-dominated teams. There's enough skills, there's enough skilled women around, or that, can be trained, that you don't have to employ all men to do a particular function in your business. And also just be allies. Men be allies for women, and women be allies for women. You need to help lift each other up. Identify biases and stamp them out. So, to kind of almost end, I just want to share a bit about my story and why I care so much about gender diversity and diversity, equity and inclusion in general. So it's happened again. Go away. I didn't snooze for long enough. That means I must have talked for more than 15 minutes. Unbelievable. Okay. So I've worked and studied in highly male-dominated environments, always. I firstly studied audio engineering and worked in the audio industry for some years. And then I moved over to tech. So that started with a degree in IT and media at Lancaster University, where you work, the School of Computing and Communications. So I did my undergrad there. And this was a large course. There was over 100 students, and there were a handful of women. And when I started uni, I'd had my daughter at that point. I think I was 28, so a mature student. I went back to uni. I had high hopes. I thought, I'm going to absolutely smash this. I kind of wasn't really ready for uni when I was 17. I was just really interested in creative production work. But then when I went back, I just really, really wanted to get the top marks, get the most out of it and get a fantastic job at the end of it. But I found when I got there, just being surrounded by young guys, basically, that the kind of, it made me feel like I didn't belong there, you know, and the other women as well. And it turns out, so I did smash it. You know, I got a first class degree. I won a prize for best student performance, Nokia prize, got some money for having the highest marks in coursework and in exams. But at that point, I didn't feel I was good enough to go and apply for the jobs that all these guys were applying for. So I think pretty much, I haven't kept in touch with them all, but I've kept in touch with a good enough portion to know of the guys I kept in touch with, 100% are working in software engineering jobs. And in fact, by now, they're, head of engineering at big companies. They've done fantastically. The women that were my classmates, only one of them is working in technology-related field now. One, went off and retrained as a nurse, for example. The other went into the travel industry. And one is an Android developer. So she stayed, I stayed. But then you question, well, why is that? And it really, the time on my course, I loved it, but it was unconsciously affecting my self-esteem, because when it was time to look for jobs, and all, guys were applying for jobs, I looked at every single job description and just thought, oh no, I'm not an expert in that. They're looking for experience in JavaScript, for example. Oh, well, I'm not experienced in JavaScript. I've only done a little bit at uni. I didn't really translate then that first job straight out of uni is meant to train you up. You're not supposed to know everything. But the way these job descriptions were worded and job ads were worded, I just felt there was nothing I could apply for. So I ended up staying on at uni for another year, do a master's. And even then, I still felt hugely underqualified. Meanwhile, the male counterparts had been a year in industry. And I, spent another year at uni, loved it, but, it didn't lead me any closer to getting a job. So then I did a PhD. Well, actually another master's, then a PhD, and I still didn't feel qualified. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, what was going on? I worked harder and longer, yet I still didn't have the confidence to go and apply for the jobs that I wanted. I still felt like an imposter. So I don't know if that's just me, but I've got a feeling it's a lot of women. So what changed? So I'm thinking, well, I've done the PhD. They're not going to let me stay any longer at uni. I can't go do another PhD. I need to get a job. So it was when I was on my PhD course, which was kind of half in the design school and half in the School of Computing and Communications. One of the girls in the cohort said to me, the BBC are running a Women in Tech event. You should go along. I know you've always wanted to work for the BBC. And I was like, oh, yeah, cool. I'll go check it out. So I went along and I heard from women working in, all different parts of the BBC. It was all women speakers, all female, and all talking about how they started and their journey into the BBC and how well supported they were. And I thought, something? Maybe this place is for me. And one of the women that was speaking said a quote that stuck with me and made me basically go and apply as soon as I got home. She said that, a man will read a job description, and if he meets, I forget the exact figure, about 30% of the criteria, he'll apply for the job, no question, just apply. Take a punt, apply for it. Whereas a woman will read a job description, and unless she meets 100%, she'll just rule it out. No, I'm not good enough for that, not good enough. And that was exactly what I'd been experiencing. So I thought, that's it. I am going to apply for the BBC. And lo and behold, I got an interview and I got the job. Couldn't believe it. And that's me doing my little dance because I was so happy. So the fact is, I'm really passionate about diversity and inclusion, especially gender diversity, because I feel now I'm an empowered woman. I chair the WiSTEM network. I have a little bit of power. I can change the working lives or the working culture and environment for the better for women. And I think empowered women need to empower women. So I do a whole load of outreach. And if anyone wants me to come and talk to your organisations, if you're doing school outreach, get in touch, because I am all over that. I'm really keen. It's important. We need representation and we need more role models. So that's it. I think I've blabbered on for longer than 15, 20 minutes, but thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
And I'll jump up there. I have to run around because Mo did such a good job, but
Right, I have one question, and I'm going to be very careful about how I ask this next question. I know that I'm not on my own with this because there are other kind of local businesses that I've spoken to about the subject where we want to get more diversity coming in, but it's not always possible when it comes to like applicants. You know, you won't always get the applications that allow you to kind of make that move forward. But obviously, there's still a need to create roles, create jobs, and obviously, if you're not getting the applications coming through, then obviously that's a bit preventative. Something you've just said sort of struck a chord with me about the job descriptions and the behavioural side of women applying for jobs. And this is the bit I'm trying to be careful with how I word this. Should we be simplifying job descriptions or cutting them down and making them less of a barrier, should we say? That's why I'm trying to choose my words very carefully. I'm not suggesting for 2 seconds that we should be simplifying them for women. What I'm saying is actually to simplify the job descriptions, to bring down the barriers, to try and encourage more women to actually apply for roles and not see the job description as an obstacle.
Yeah, well, you know, and it truly is an obstacle, that's the thing. So a couple of questions. So really for you, if you're not getting, you know, enough female applicants or high enough quality for you to be able to make an offer, then where are you advertising your jobs? And what are your job ads? How are they reading? You know, personally, when I read a job description, I don't want to see, you know, must have this. A little paragraph at the end just saying, you know, if you don't meet all the requirements, we're really keen to train up the right person. You know, you may not be an expert in all of this. What we're looking for is passion, commitment, new ideas, you know, apply, let's have a chat. That's the sort of thing. And yeah, just rather than a kind of long list of things. And you know, what we'd heard about earlier is actually Deliveroo not even looking at CVs and stuff. You know, I think that's fantastic. You know, let the person speak for themselves. Don't cut them out and they don't even get sifted, you know, they get sifted away basically based on their CV. Get them in the door and talk to them.
Dan, are you still mic'd up or do I need to repeat?
Emma, thank you. That thought was incredible, by the way. I like to think of myself as what you described as an ally. Try my best to. One of the things I like is having career conversations with people. Often, when I especially speak to women in particular, not being being a consultant, being a freelancer, not working in the environments that they work in. But often I find myself kind of advising, perhaps in that sort of conversations about something you talked about, the job description is not not really sort of seeing something and not thinking that's for me. I often think when I have these conversations with you, I find myself saying, don't be scared to take responsibility for things. Don't be scared to say, I did that. And what's your kind of advice? Because I can't go into those organisations and say, change the culture of the guys that are in there. That's how can you help women to really realise what they are good at and how to identify the talents more effectively?
Yeah, so I mean, in the past, you know, we've run workshops, for example, in personal branding. So even some, you know, advice, maybe getting an expert in to coach women, you know, it could just be an hour session and say, you know, things that you're personally proud of. Here's how to kind of display them, not only just for your, you know, on LinkedIn, for example, but for your line manager to see, for the next hiring manager to see that you're going to apply for a job with. Make sure that, you know, your successes and your talents and strengths are being amplified. And that's the best thing. And what I was saying about celebrating the successes of your women, that's the best thing you can do for them. Because often, you know, you're in a male-dominated team, you share a great idea, a couple of months later, and your colleagues actually claiming it as their own. They never say, oh, by the way, we went away and worked on your fantastic idea, Emma, and here's the result. No, it's like, oh, we went and done this thing, isn't it great? And it's not good. It just makes you feel a bit undervalued. But I think, giving advice to women, I think definitely running workshops with them, get a few women together who are, if you have the same needs, support needs, and design the session around it. But women have to be more assertive at work. That's the thing. And I know, personality traits vary greatly, but, and you were talking about this earlier in your talk, seeming aggressive or ambitious. A lot of men don't like that. They don't like it at all. I've been told, oh, you're a bit too ambitious. You just need to slow down a little. You'll do well, but just slow down. And why should I? Why should I slow down and like the men around me not slow down? So it's, train them, help them be more assertive and help them, be more ambitious, I would say.
I am. I'm gonna jump in and therefore move on camera a little bit. Before I say what I'm gonna say, has anybody got any further questions for Emma?
I have, but I've asked so many questions today.
I'll tell you what, if you feel like that, if you want to grab her after, I'm sure Emma will ask any further questions. What I'm going to add is a bit of a shout out to you all and a bit of a call to action. We've had this whole conversation today, and we've heard about some of the amazing stuff people have done, from digital transformation to setting up businesses to new ways of looking at recruitment and retention. And I think there's been some really interesting points brought out around age or around gender or ethnicity. And I think, there's been that thread throughout the day. I mentioned before Tech Talent Charter to you, and they are an amazing organisation who, and the charter itself is a place to sign to very visually say and very, make a stand to say, yep, we want to make a difference in equality, diversity, inclusion, belonging, whichever of those initials you want to grab hold of. And what they also do is, once you are on your journey to say, yes, I want to do better at this, or I want to move forward with my culture or my recruitment practices, then they can help you with that. So, for example, job descriptions, they've got something called the Playbook. And the Playbook is an open source information, and it's come from years and years of working with people and building up expertise and understanding from businesses of all sorts of shapes and sizes. And we've worked with them for a couple of years, and this playbook is great. And there is stuff on job descriptions in there. And what we've talked about, there's generally three sort of areas that people struggle with when they get to this kind of topic. And one is talking about it. Why should I do it? Why does it matter? And I think today we've covered that in spades. It's absolutely fantastic. The second bit is actually thinking about your own business culture, and actually, is my own culture. Get your own cards in, your cards in order. Is that the right metaphor? If I mixed it there, that's the one. House of Cards is what was in my head, but there you go. I knew that was a mixed metaphor. Get your own house in order in terms of what's our culture. Are we truly inclusive, or do we allow microaggressions, like make sure you dress better than that, or whatever else? But do we allow that, or whatever else is? That's just the example. And then also about recruitment practices, and we've looked to put on some training for organisations and across Lancashire. What I'd really like, the call to action for you guys today is, I'd really like you to take a look at your organisation and whether you'd be prepared to sign the Tech Talent Charter. And part of that is, as a LEP, you can see that our strategy and our skills strategy involves diversity and inclusion. And what we'd like is to be able to work with some businesses who care in Lancashire enough to make a difference and start making that push of a Lancashire-wide change in culture to ensure we can meet some of those ambitious targets for diversity and inclusion. And if you can sit there and go, yeah, I'm doing that, fabulous, sign the charter, let's work together. And let's do that, because together we can nudge and change and make a difference and be allies for all sorts of people to make sure that we are diverse and inclusive. So my shout out to you is quite simply, please sign the charter. we can then from there, and I'll work with Tech Talent Charter, pick up everybody in Lancashire who is interested, and they run Tech Talent Charter what can we do for you sessions. So they can just like a half hour, a lunchtime session. What can I do for you? And we can run a Lancashire one of those to see how Tech Talent Charter could support your business in making some of those changes. If needed, they might not be needed, or or it might just be a celebration or sharing of good practice. But how can you make that journey? So on behalf of the LEP and on behalf of the Digital Skills Partnership, on behalf of the Lancashire County Council, just like to ask you to take a look at that, sign up, benefit from what Tech Talent Charter do, and then we can work together to change, not just your business but Lancashire as well in the tech industry. Rituja. Brilliant. And I'm just going to finish there because I know we're running over somewhat. So thank you so much for coming today. It's been brilliant. Thank you for staying till the end and listening to our wonderful Emma. Dan will send around a little bit of an evaluation via LinkedIn, and I'd really appreciate your feedback because we want to try and make some kind of annual event around Digital Summit, and we'll fiddle around with the format and see how it all works, and your feedback will be appreciated in that in terms of speakers and what have you. Well, thank you very much. Have a safe journey home, and we're all around if you want any questions or any further information. So thank you very much.